Today, I'm in Circleville, Ohio. Let's check it out. This is part one of my Circleville series. See my other videos from more of the town's history. And be sure to check out my standalone videos for the dark history and stranger tales from the area. Stand on Main Street in Circleville, Ohio, and everything looks square. City blocks, right angles, a county courthouse anchoring the middle of town. A tidy little grid, same as 10,000 other American towns. But this one is lying to you, because 200 years ago, this town wasn't square at all. It was a circle, a perfect ring of streets wrapped around the courthouse, laid out like a wagon wheel, with the roads running out from the center like spokes. People called it Roundtown. And the circle? That wasn't the beginning of the story either, because the men who built it were standing on top of something far, far older. Something that had been here for the better part of 2,000 years before the first settler ever drove a stake into this ground. This is the story of the town that was born round, on the bones of a vanished people, and then on purpose erased its own shape. Welcome to Circleville. This stretch of bottomland along the Scioto River belonged to the Hopewell people. I mentioned this in the Chillicothe video, but that's our word for them, not what they called themselves. The name comes from the farm near Chillicothe where the first major site from this people was studied. They didn't leave writing for us to read, but they did leave us earth, and what they built from it was staggering. A great circle of raised ground. By their earliest accounts, better than 1,000 feet across, its walls standing as tall as a man on horseback, joined to an enormous square, raised by hand. Basket of dirt by basket of dirt. Over generations, aligned, deliberate, and built for reasons we're still only guessing at. Ceremony, burial, the movement of the sun and moon across the sky, a cathedral with no roof. No one knows for sure, but these same people raised structures like it all over southern Ohio, and then they were gone. The archaeologists' best guess is that sometime around 1,500 years ago, they left this site and the great circle sat empty. The grass grew over it. Trees took root in the walls. Century after century, the wood swallowed the great structure, until that's what the first surveyors found when they walked in. An ancient, overgrown ring in the wilderness that nobody could explain. In 1810, Ohio was young. Pickaway County was brand new, and it needed a county seat. A town to be the center of things. They picked this spot on the Scioto, and men set about building a town. Daniel Dreisbach, a Pennsylvanian, was sent to oversee laying it out, and Dreisbach looked at the ancient circle and decided the town would honor it. He would build inside the circle and set an 8-sided courthouse right at its center. He laid out 2 great concentric rings with lanes radiating out like the spokes of a wheel, following the shape the Hopewell had left behind. The name came easy. They called it what it was, Circleville, though it picked up a nickname too, Roundtown. Lots went up for sale in September of 1810, and they threw a barbecue to mark the day. Folks came in from the countryside, and by the account that survived, Dreisbach sold nearly 30 lots the very first day alone, with more the next. And the buyers didn't just buy, they raced. Neighbors competing to be the first to get a roof up on their slice of the circle. Timber raising, a whole town willing itself into existence on a bend in the river. For a moment, Circleville was one of the most unusual places in the country, a living town wrapped around a dead people's masterpiece. But it wouldn't stay that way for long. Within a generation, the people of Circleville began to hate the very thing that made their town unique. By the 1830s, the novelty had worn thin. The pie-sliced lots were awkward. The curved streets were a nuisance. And in 1837, the state of Ohio authorized the unthinkable, squaring the circle off. Street by street, block by block. A company was even formed to carry it out, with a name almost too strange to be real, the Circleville Squaring Company. And in the process, they'd flatten what remained of the 2,000-year-old earthwork until there was nothing left of it but the name on the map. Now, the squaring of the town is a big story, and strange enough that it deserves a video all its own. And it's got one. I made a whole episode digging into how you square a circle, why they did it, and what it cost. If that piques your interest, go watch it. It's worth your time. It's called the de-circling of Circleville. For now, all you need to know is this. By the middle of the 1800s, the circle was gone. The grid had won, and Circleville kept its name like a headstone over the thing it had buried. But squaring the town didn't sink it. If anything, it set Circleville up to thrive. Because look at where it sits. The Pickaway Plains, some of the richest, blackest, most productive farmland in the entire state of Ohio. Land that grew corn and wheat and fattened cattle like almost nowhere else in the young country. And a town in the middle of ground like that just needs to be open for business to thrive. Then came the water. The Ohio and Erie Canal cut its way through this part of the state. And suddenly Circleville wasn't just a farm town on a river. It was plugged into the commercial bloodstream of the whole state. Grain moved, goods moved, and money moved. The families who worked those plains got rich, men like the Rennicks, cattle barons who were among the first in the region to drive their herds clear to the markets on the East Coast. See my series on Chillicothe for a little more about that story. And when the canal era faded, the railroads came right behind it, threading straight through the heart of downtown. The same tracks that will stop traffic and rattle the windows today. You can still read that wealth in the buildings. Walk the old district and you'll see it standing there. The tall Italianate storefronts, the Queen Anne homes with their turrets and gingerbread, the grand Victorian houses built by people who had done very, very well for themselves. This wasn't hardscrabble frontier outpost anymore. By the late 1800s, Circleville was a confident, prosperous, established American town, proud of itself and with reason to be. So here we are, standing at the edge of the 20th century, the Hopewell gone, their great circle erased, the strange, round little experiment of a town, squared away, paved over, and mostly forgotten. And in its place, a solid, thriving county seat, sitting fat and happy on the best farmland in Ohio, with a railroad running through it, and a story already buried under its own streets. The 19th century made Circleville. The 20th century is about to make it famous. For a jazz king, for a giant pumpkin festival that draws hundreds of thousands, and for a mystery so dark the whole country would eventually learn this little town's name. But that is for the rest of the video. For the first 4 years of Pickaway County's existence, court was held in borrowed space. The very first sessions were held down in Jefferson, at the home of a man named Henry Neville, before the county seat even moved here. Once it did, court convened in rented rooms in private homes here in Circleville, the upstairs of a two-story log home owned by the Zeiger family, and hearings were even held in a couple of local churches. Then in 1814, the town's centerpiece was finished, an octagonal courthouse crowned with a center cupola, built directly in the middle of town, right in the heart of the ancient earthwork, with the whole village wrapped around it in rings, and the streets radiating out from it like spokes of a wheel. There's a surviving watercolor, a bird's eye map of Circleville, painted in 1870 from notes and sketches made back in 1836, and it shows you exactly where this courthouse stood, the intersection of what's now Court and Main Streets, dead center. This beautiful, one-of-a-kind courthouse didn't last, unfortunately. It became a casualty of the squaring off of the village that we talked about back in the opening. It was torn down in 1840. Construction on a new courthouse started in 1845 and was completed in 1847. That's the building you see behind me. Well, sort of. Hang on to that because I'll come back to it in just a minute. The project came in at about $45,000 and it went up in the Greek Revival style with a 50-foot clock tower and a jail down in the basement. By the 1880s, the county had outgrown it and the basement jail had been condemned by the grand jury over and over. Officials wanted to tear the whole thing down and start fresh, but the public pushed back. The people of Pickaway County had grown attached to their courthouse and they did not want to watch a second one get demolished. So a compromise was struck. The old building would simply be remodeled and updated. And what officials did next was clever. Clever enough that most people never quite realized what had happened, because this was no simple remodel. They enlarged the building with 2 new wings and then reclad the whole thing in an entirely new skin, so completely that the original 1847 courthouse all but disappeared inside it. Work began in 1888 and was finished about a year later. So what you're actually looking at today is the dramatic later remodel, a heavy Richardsonian Romanesque structure with the old Greek Revival courthouse hidden away inside it. A courthouse tucked inside of another courthouse. That's the sort of I mentioned earlier. You're looking right at the 1847 building and you can't really see it at all. Well, almost none of it, because there's one piece of the original you can still see. When they rebuilt, they saved a column from the old 1847 courthouse and worked it into the Civil War Soldiers Monument erected on the grounds in 1889. So if you want to lay eyes on a genuine piece of that lost Greek Revival building, you don't go inside. You walk out to the monument. The cost for this new courthouse that swallowed the old one came in at just over $100,000, about $104,000, and it still serves the residents of Pickaway County today. I had to go in and check out Lindsay's Donuts. It's all kind of horror themed inside. The dark history lover in me was intrigued, so about to have a donut.